welcome to episode 71 of the It's Just a Hill Cycling Podcast. I am John, and I am here with return guest of the podcast and owner of NBX, Matt Bodziony. Hello, Matt. Welcome back
John.
to the show.
Thanks for having me back. Yeah.
So just real quick, before we get into this conversation, you have been on the show before. Mm-hmm. That was episode 30 of the podcast. We sort of went into the background of your involvement with bike shops, the history of NBX. So if folks haven't watched that or listened to it, you can watch it here on YouTube.
Yeah.
You can find it on the NBX website with all of the other shows that I've done with members of the staff.
Yes.
So now we're going to go and talk about what I think is a very important thing in like supporting your local bike shop.
Right.
And we're going to sort of talk about like the world of bike shops these days and how it works with online competitors and all of that stuff, right? So let's start with sort of talking about like the reality of running a bike shop, right? Running a bike shop, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme, right?
Right.
Things are expensive in the shop.
Right.
But there, you know, it comes down to like different margins for different things. And so like in 2025, what would you say is like the biggest challenge of running a bike shop?
Oh boy, that's a big one. I mean, it's, you know, there's an element of what has happened over the last 4 or 5 years that's just been so unique, that the stores in the retail world I've really kind of struggled with being able to forecast, being able to plan. You know, we were always a very, you know, like these months were the months that you did this, these months were the months that you did that. And you kind of looked at your numbers from the past. You know, the point of sale systems gave us a good inventory projection element. And so every level of the industry has struggled with that, you know, and that's kind of where we're at now, where the struggle for this coming year is just as much a unique struggle than it was in 24. You know, it's different from 24. It's different from 23. Right. And now the new kind of version of retail is, you know, staying relevant because price is so conscious in the marketplace, in society as a buyer. And so we're always trying to make sure we have a reason why you'd buy the same product from us that you could buy in a lot of other places.
Right.
We're not shy to understand that is reality,
right,
more than ever. Right. And so we're really fighting to maintain that relevance and maintain the need through a lot of different ways, you know. And but I think as a whole, the manufacturing side and the industry itself is trying to find its way through this, and with, you know, inventory levels and where is pricing going to level off, and that's an expense piece that nobody's been able to really control because
for like 5 years,
materials have changed, you know, costs and freight has been expensive, and manufacturing and the process to getting that has been a longer demand for, you know, in terms of its turnaround time. You know, when you're dealing with production processes that just, you know, most people don't realize, but a lot of that stuff from a manufacturer like Trek is taking a good 6 months to turn around to get to our door from when it's built. And so all those processes just have been stretched and changed in terms of this last 4 or 5 years. So it's you know, we're in a global economy that, you know, it doesn't matter what part of the world, it all tends to affect
each other.
Each other, right? And so this little store in Narragansett, Rhode Island, smallest state in the union, tends to be affected by some of the biggest actions in the country and in the world. So we're trying to stay on top of that stuff the best we can. But sometimes it's just pulling ourselves back to, this is our community and this is our opportunity to offer what we can do as individuals within the sport and the business. So
Right, because that's really where a local shop stands out compared to an online retailer, right? And so I think that like service and expertise, they go such a long way.
Yes.
And I mean, as someone that personally thinks about bikes all the time, sometimes I can be paralyzed by choice.
Sure.
And so going online and just looking at tire choices or saddles or whatever they are can be a little bit intimidating. And so to have like real life advice from real people versus guessing on the internet, I mean, I think is very valuable. And, you know, it's not like the business in general of having a small business or a bike shop, right? I mean, you're operating on thin margins, and it is a seasonal schedule, right? I mean, especially here in Narragansett.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The further south in the state and the coastal community that we kind of represent down here is, I mean, it is New England. Like we can't forget, we had a mild winter last year. We're having a true winter, New England winter. And so those are always opportunities for us to Reed Castor. I worked for him for years, and early on, and when I was working with him for one of the first winters back in the early 90s, he had made a statement that said, this is when we make our money, in the wintertime.
Yeah.
And, a naive young kid looking in the retail world thinking, what is he talking about? There's like nobody in the store, or sales are down, all that stuff. But it's the opportunity for us to work on the projects that we need to do to be better in the season, to offer a better consumer experience.
Which is what it feels like it's been being done in the shop here in the last month and a half, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even with my like sort of limited involvement of coming down here once a week or so, it is very much a time for us to wrap our head around things that went well last year.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the hustle and bustle of like the season is wild. Right. I mean, especially if you're talking like a true Narragansett summer between May and September, right? Yeah, that goes by.
It goes
pretty
by
quick.
And your priority at that point is your customer. Right. And so, to try to revamp a system or try to redo the floor, or, any of these projects that, ultimately you need this downtime in the wintertime. So it's partially welcomed, right? I mean, if there's an opportunity to plan for that, with the fluctuation of the year in terms of sales and customer visits and all that. So, but I mean, the margins in the industry has always had a fight to recognize that the bike is such a high serviced item, right? So there's a lot that goes into giving you a bike, or selling you a bike, I should say, that says, all right, when we get it in, it needs to be assembled, and we don't charge for assembly. And when we get it built, it's represented on the floor, and then it's ultimately giving you the sales knowledge to, give you that opportunity to ride the bike and understand the bike. And so there's time involved in that. And then we want to make sure that the break-in period is covered and we cover that service. And then there's free tune-up for the first year, which is pretty standard in our industry. But as a specialty retailer in an independent bike dealer, that's what we're all doing.
Right.
And so it doesn't matter whether it's me or my friendly competitors around, we're all going through the same thing. Right. And so that's all just the one process of selling one bike.
Now, people aren't thinking about that, right? People are not understanding that seeing a bike on the service floor means that like the shop is paid for this bike.
Sure.
And then they've paid for people to work on the bike already.
Yes.
And then they're paying for whether you own a building or lease the place that you're in. That percentage of floor space in the shop is being taken up by a bike that you've paid for, you've paid service people to build. Right. And right now, I mean, it's staying pristine on the floor, but it is essentially in a way collecting dust, right?
Yep.
As you try to get someone to buy it.
Right.
And so people see these price tags that go up, but they, the rate is going up because the cost of living is going up, right? Sure. And so there's all of those things that are tied to it. And I think people, they make the easy decision to just like buy something online. Right. Yeah. And there's a ton of different reasons to want to buy something online.
Sure.
And I think, you have to, as a consumer, you have to weigh what those options are. But what people, I don't think, are realizing is like that extra time that goes in, right? Yeah. To the having a physical space, right? And having people that work here.
Yeah.
But then it's like people that buy tires online, but then want to bring them here to get mounted.
Yeah.
I mean, you can understand where someone's coming from when they're only looking at numbers on a paper.
Yeah.
But like, does anyone really feel better about supporting Amazon than they do about supporting their local bike shop? Right. Whether or not it's NBX.
Yeah.
Any local bike shop.
Right.
I certainly don't.
Yeah.
I don't even want to buy my regular goods off of Amazon these days.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they are a faceless entity that has no personality, has no real investment in you as a consumer.
Yeah.
They have no investment in you as a consumer.
Yeah, listen, I'm investing in my relationship with the consumer.
Yeah.
Like if it's important to you, that's what I have to offer, right? And if it's not, then it is an Amazon purchase, you know. And listen, we're all consumers. We all get situations where financials are tight, or I can't justify spending certain money. I think that we're in a different place that says we have a lot to offer you, even if you're buying the same item from someplace else. You know, it's driven off of a relationship. Yeah. Like I pride myself on my empathy, my compassion for a consumer. Right. You don't get that online. Even if you get a great person that you had to call and had to deal with, that's still a very limited relationship.
Well, without a doubt.
Listen, we're in a self-checkout society right now. Like I still want to go into the bank instead of go through the drive-through or deposit my money into the ATM. Like I want to talk to somebody. That's important to me, you know, and I think that I'm trying to, and this is going to sound really corny, but I'm trying to change that one smile at a time, right? Like ultimately there's a goal that says relationships are important in life. And so my relationship with, and what I've worked on in the bike industry for over 30 years is to be able to offer the consumer a better opportunity with their purchase for the future, because I'm not selling a toaster that good luck. Right. You know, like we'll see you when you need to get a new toaster.
A new toaster. Right.
Like I'm invested in that purchase with you and in that relationship, because to me, I don't want to not see you again. Right. Like my goal is to see you again. Right. There's not too many places that want that, you know, in life. And so what we're really trying to do is return to that, you know, old school service model that does it, that means something to you when you come in to see, you know, JB's smiling face and Ben working on your bike and being able to answer why he did what he did and what you needed to have done. And Jason's ability to share his information about where he's mountain biking and, you know, and all these things. And so to me, those are the parts that are going to always change us, you know, from the online Amazon element, or any element really. So,
it's not just a store.
No.
Right. NBX is not just a store.
Correct.
It is a hub for cyclists. Yeah. Or for people who want to do yoga here at the studio.
It's a little hub.
Oh, pun intended. Absolutely should have intended. I wish I had intended the pun. I'm upset. Damn. It's a free hub for local cyclists.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, it is.
But it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that speaks to you saying when you're like, you want people to come back. And that doesn't mean you just want people to come back to have their bike serviced on or to buy a new set of tires. But come to the Thursday shop ride. Right. You know, come to the It's Just a Hill rides that are here on Saturdays. Come to the, like, what people, and I don't think everyone, there are a lot of great people that I've met at the shop, and I know a lot of people really appreciate what you do in terms of, you know, what I think is like bending over backwards for the community. Because that Thursday night shop ride, first of all, it's a free ride. Right. Which, I mean, sure, roads are free. As someone that hosts group rides, I think group rides should be free. You know what I mean? But afterwards, you get a burger and a hot dog. You get a soft drink. You get a beer. I mean, that goes a really long way. And those are that's the part of the shop that makes it like a hub. Right. Yeah. Because then you're hanging out, you're talking with people who maybe on the group ride, they rode at a little bit of a different pace than you. Sure. And so you didn't really get to chat with them that much. But you have tons in common with them. You're both here at a bike shop on a Thursday night.
We all like to ride bikes.
Exactly. The sun is setting. You want to talk about your bike stuff. Sure. So that's what's so great about that. Right. And that's what's so great about talking to either you here or any of the previous people that you mentioned that are here at the shop, working at the shop. Right. And so, like, that is like what the advantage is of buying gear directly from here. Right. And so, I mean, we didn't even talk about how you can buy something on Amazon that is fake. That is, you know, there's nothing backed by it before. I've talked about it before on this show. I bought a fake chain on Amazon. It was a Dura Ace chain. I foolishly, ignorantly brought it here to be like, hey, I had a chain. And Ben was like, where'd you get this? I was like, I think I got it on Amazon. Maybe I got it as a gift from my dad or something, but it was purchased on Amazon. Right. I went back, I found the retailer. Sure enough, the store was closed. There was no way of like getting my money back or any.
It's hard, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so in that moment, when the chain was purchased, it was $10 cheaper. Well, guess what? Now I'm out $45
right.
or whatever.
Yeah.
And I still had to buy a chain from the shop. And it's a learning experience.
Yeah.
But it goes to show that like it's much more than just like I said before, like the numbers on on paper.
Right.
And if we want to support small businesses, you need to put your money where your mouth is. I mean, in the economy that is today, we get to sort of vote with our dollar.
Yeah,
right?
For
like
sure.
We really do as consumers.
Yeah.
You get to back what you want to back. I feel so much better about, and I don't even need to talk about bike shops. I feel so much better about buying my groceries from Market Basket.
Sure.
A relatively small New England company, right?
Yep.
Than I do feeling about like buying my oats and coffee on Amazon.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that much better. And that's what we get to do as consumers is back the brands or the small businesses that we like, you know?
Yeah.
Go to that coffee shop that has a nice, cool vibe inside and has good coffee and good cookies rather than going to Dunkin'. I get Dunkin's easy.
Yeah.
You know,
exactly.
I get it.
Yeah, yeah.
We understand, right? It's easy to just buy something online. Guess what? You can buy your NBX stuff online too. Just go to NBXBikes.com.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, we have another channel there.
Yeah,
too,
buy your stuff there.
Yeah,
and there are always like, you know, as someone that has been posting things for the shop on Marketplace, there are always good deals. Like you said, you're always willing to get on the phone with someone, help them out, whether it be with financing, whether it be with, hey, you know, I'm going to pay for the bike down the line, but can we start sizing me up on it now?
Yep.
Can we start talking about what bike I want for next season 6 months in advance?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that is a lot different than someone coming to the shop, test riding a bike, putting on a pair of shoes, let's say, and then saying, okay, thanks, and then leaving here and buying them on some website.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, there's an unfortunate piece that that happens a lot, actually, and in every kind of retail space, shoes are probably the best example of that, you know, and I think that, and I think honestly, you know, if I could get any message across today was, like, listen, we're here, and I'm not here to teach you a lesson as a consumer. Sure. Like I'm not here to try to reprimand you from your purchases outside of the independent bike dealer or the small business. Mm-hmm. At the same time, you have to recognize the effort that we're putting in to offer you a showroom full of stuff. Right. To offer you a continuing education side of our own background to be able to be better at what we do for the consumer. Right. That's not going to hurt when that happens. Like when a situation like that occurs, I don't honestly think the majority of those consumers really think they're doing anything wrong. Right. And it's wrong.
Right. I mean, to me, that's what is important about this conversation.
Yeah. Right. And I think that there's a piece of that, you know, listen, you know, I learned a lesson about, even when we talked about being, you know, purchasing something online because it was cheaper, but then needing us to help install it or do something with it or handle it. And, you know, there's a lot of conversations that come up, and there's a part of it that I feel the need now to educate people when it happens. Mm-hmm. And for a long time, it was just ignored, you know, and it wasn't so much that, like, I didn't want to become confrontational with the consumer. Sure. And I would never want that to be part of this presentation, is that, oh, screw him. Like, you know, it's like, I want to buy the thing. This is what I had to do. Right. I completely understand that. Right. I'm asking for the sensitivity of when you come into a store that has taken a lot of time to be there for you in those times of needs and in those situations, that ultimately these are the outcome is that you are kind of questioning, you know, our ability to be there for the future. Right. Because if you didn't need us for that, you may not need us for anything. And I disagree with that. Right. And so I remember when I was younger and I was dealing with cars, and I wanted to buy an exhaust for my Volkswagen. Yeah. And I went to Hans, who's since retired, but one of the best German mechanics in the state. Yeah. And I went to him and I said, as a young, naive college kid, and I said, So I need a new exhaust for my Jetta. But if I bring you the exhaust, how much would it be to install it?
Yeah.
And he looked right at me and said, you're one of those. You bring your eggs to the diner and ask them to cook them for you.
That's
and
great.
It was very much an eye opener to what I just did. Yeah. And so I don't want to be
something that's absolutely unheard of in the restaurant industry.
Right.
This is the type of bread I want. Can you toast it up for me?
Exactly. I'm giving you the product that I've already bought, right? And so there's sensitivity to that, and I think that that's all I'm asking for. Right. I think that that's the problem right now is it is so removed from the consumer's purchasing process that, I'll install it. I mean, we're going to do all of that. Of course. Like I want you to see the service that we have to offer.
Of course.
So don't hesitate to ever bring that stuff into us, I think it's more of understanding where we are in terms of, what we're offering you as a consumer. And if you don't ride the Thursday night ride, you may not appreciate that opportunity that we're giving to the consumer. We do a lot for the community outside of just bike rides. And so that knowledge of giving you the ability to learn about riding a bicycle and fitting a bicycle and the accessories that make your experience 100% better.
Yeah.
It's like any sport that has the opportunity to better that reason why to get back on the bike. Right. I'm always trying to make that even more enjoyable for the rider to do the next time around, So,
Yeah, and then there's also the repercussions of what happens when online retailing takes too much of a hold and places like NBX or other local bike shops start to disappear.
Right.
And, that is, that's quite the consequence. Of, and it's not just one person saving $15 on a set of tires.
Right.
Yeah. But it does tend to add up.
It does.
And what happens is when you go with this sort of self-checkout mentality, it makes retailers more faceless.
Right.
And it in the interim or in the short term, it probably feels right. But going down the line, like you said, this is just about educating people that hey, we benefit from the smallest thing being sold at the shop to the largest thing being sold at the shop.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
We really do benefit all across the board. And it helps to have places like NBX around because, like you said, it's not just about the shop ride, right?
Right.
It's about what else you support in the community.
Yeah.
And not you going to the local bank, right?
Sure.
Making money here and going to the local bank and how that stimulates the local economy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So because, not to make this about things that are outside the bike world too much, right? But the economy has such a stronghold on us, and there's all these things that are big picture, you know what I mean? And what we can do as individuals is support more grassroots type of small business movements, right?
Yeah.
And injecting our money into local economies is so much better than just clicking a button and buying something on Amazon.
Exactly. Yeah.
A company that doesn't even get properly taxed.
Right.
Yeah. You know what I mean? We don't even need to go into that, but that's really what we're talking about here is voting with your money in a way that supports the causes that you want to support. And to me, as someone that's been really really with this shop now for a year and being here and seeing how things work and seeing how passionate people are about bikes, right? And how the people here continue to learn about the technology that is continuing to come out, right?
Right.
Me as someone that has a podcast that thinks about bikes all the time, talking about being overwhelmed by that stuff. Well, the people here at the shop are learning all the time.
Right.
Whether it be okay, Shimano Q's is coming out. How are we going to learn to service this type of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Or hey, there's a new suspension. We need to learn about how this suspension works. There's new shoes. What are the benefits to the new shoes versus the old shoes? You know, and okay, we have this one thing on sale. It might be a little bit dated, but hey, it still works great.
Exactly.
And guess what? Great winter sale right now. Come check out those things. You know?
Yeah.
And so it's about getting people to want to come to the shop for more than just buying things. I just like being here. You know? And that Thursday night ride is a good example of that. Or just coming in and hey, what's new? right? Like
Right.
I think most people in here, unless it's like super busy, they will drop anything and be like, "Hey, I'll teach you about something."
Sure.
You know.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what's important. And like different events at the shop that happen, like it's all of that, right? And just like trying to make NBX a destination. And like we said, it's not just a place to buy things.
Right.
You know, it's so much more than that.
Yeah, I think that, you know, we are working hard to foster relationships on both sides, right? Like for me, you know, when these guys are learning, they're really working hard to make sure that we are up to speed on everything. It's changing so much, and we want that information to be shared as best as we can when a consumer comes in to look for that stuff. And yet our relationships with, you know, service tech centers, you know, for all these different products, and our relationships with companies like Trek and Santa Cruz and Cervelo, all these brands that really have a lot to offer.
Yeah.
You know, us as a relationship that we can pass along. Right. And so as a consumer, we're always looking at that, you know, to kind of really flatten that out for you as a consumer, in terms of you don't have to deal with that, right? Like we're here to deal with that. You know, and that's what really is a big part of service that kind of gets under until you experience it and have to deal with it, and you've dealt with your own struggles with it. A lot of it's behind the scenes, right? It's like these are all the things that are happening behind the curtain, and then, you know, before the play starts, you know. And so then when the play opens, you don't see any of it because you're not supposed to see it.
You're not supposed to see it.
You know,
it's been buttoned up beforehand.
We don't want to, you know, there's always this, you know, when we talked about sitting together, you know, there's a side of me that, you know, I'm sharing some of this information about the business and the overhead strains and the, you know, the low margins and all these things. There's a side of me that never felt like the consumer needed to be burdened with that.
Sure.
Right. And so that's my responsibility as a business owner. And I think that what I'm trying to represent, you know, is a bit of more of a seamless experience, right? And it doesn't happen all the time. Sure. I mean, we've fumbled, the industry, the manufacturer has fumbled. There's a bike that gets built and it needs a new fork before the consumer even knows about the situation, right? And so, and those are all parts of what we're doing, that we're trying to make sure the consumer doesn't.
It makes it smoother for you. It makes it smoother for the consumer for you to deal with it.
Right. And so then, but we're doing a lot behind the scenes that the consumer ultimately never really needs to concern themselves with, or worry. I shouldn't say concern, worry about, right? It's, you know, and so there's a balancing act for me to say, I want to be relevant as a consumer when they're purchasing things. And yes, we have a lot of challenges in the industry right now as a not only a small business, but in the bike world in general. And I think that my goal is always to make sure that your experience here when you come to NBX is, you know, much more effortless for you versus going through a problem. And you can say Amazon's a really effortless process, but the minute you have a problem, it's really an awful experience, you know, in any of those situations. And they happen. Like that's, nobody's immune to that situation. We've all dealt with it over time, you know, buying things through the internet. You know? So,
I think that, like, you saying worry versus concern was big, right? Because the problems are going to happen. Right. But we'll take care of you.
Right.
It's like a
very
good
much
thing,
so.
You know? Like, we get it, you know? Like, but we'll take care of you. And if you want to ask 100 questions, we'll answer them. If you just want to ask one because you don't want to be burdened by the questions, we'll also get that done for you.
And that's our job. That's what we want to be here for, as a guide and a answering, you know, so
and then to think like of the warranties that come with certain brands, right? And the brands that you sell here at the shop and how you uphold their warranties. I think that's like a very important thing too, right? And so, like, how does a consumer deal with that?
I mean, you know, ultimately they come to the store, and you know, I mean, and then that's really as simple as that. I mean, yes, there's, you know, we're, you know, all the manufacturers that we deal with as partners are, you know, if you don't have to be purchasing that product from me, you need a proof of purchase.
Sure.
I mean, I think that the one piece that they've tried to protect both themselves and the independent bike dealer is that they want it to be purchased in a legitimate way. Right. That's really your only requirement. Right. And so once you hand it off to us, we do all the footwork and the legwork for you. And, and then, we make it as seamless as possible, through that process. And we're really good at it. I mean, that is definitely, we are really good at it based on, and that's a relationship thing. That's because we deal with these companies in a multitude of ways that kind of give us that, those relationships, those contacts, so it's great.
Can we talk about a couple of like the events that we have coming up in 2025 that will happen here? Right. Yeah. So Ender Winter Bike League, we're going to have a nice little award ceremony here at the shop. That'll be very fun. That's going to happen towards the end of March. Yeah. And then the next month, April, we're still ironing out all the details, but we're going to be doing what do we think? Flea market, parts swap, sort of deal here at the shop. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think we all have this collection of stuff. So I guess it falls more onto a bike swap for the people who know bike swaps. But if you don't know what a bike swap is, it's really like a flea market.
Right, it's a flea market.
So we're going to do something like that, and we'll still have some new stuff to be able to sell and we'll do, in conjunction to that. But we're also going to pull in some of our vendor partners and have an information area, a little expo area. But then, ultimately it'll be, grab that box of stuff and sign up for a table and sell your stuff.
Yes, please come by my tubes that I have. The stems are like 40s and they don't work.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, I'm not even carrying those tubes anymore. I'm carrying like tubolitos these days.
Right.
Please come. And I think that'll be a lot of fun because it'll be really fun. You can sort of like, I anticipate people to maybe bring some like older stuff, like collectible. Yeah. Right? Like I would love to buy some like cool antique stuff, Or like, hey, maybe you need a stem or you want to swap a stem or you want to swap a saddle. And so, you can just come and like sell your stuff, but also, like you said, learn, participate in different like sales events that are happening here at the shop, but also like, hey, like, Shimano might be here or Rotation Engineering might be here.
Exactly.
Able to educate you on, something new that's ever changing here in the bike industry.
Yeah. So there'll be stuff for kind of everybody. It'll be fun. So
we're talking about a couple other things. We're going to do Thank You Day again in October. We did that last year. Yeah. Maybe some like movie nights here at the shop.
We want to have some movie nights. We're doing a yoga night right now on Wednesdays at 6.
Wednesdays at
Crystal. 6. And that's been kind of a big cycling bunch. So if you're intimidated by yoga, come to that class because
that's Wednesday evenings.
That's Wednesday evenings at 6, and then we're looking at a 6:30 on Thursdays as well.
Cool.
With Gladys. So we have a great studio to be able to mix it up a little bit. I know everybody's been doing a lot of indoor training and sneaking out when the weather's been decent. But if you want to take a break from your bike, come on in and do a little stretching, So
you got to take a break. No, that's great. And so people can, I try to share the posts on the NBX Instagram from the studio at NBX's Instagram. But if they go and they follow that account, right, they can see all the things that are being posted up there.
Yeah, exactly.
And what the schedule is like. I know there's also a Valentine's Day thing that they're doing.
Yeah, there's going to be a partner night on Valentine's night. And then we're actually introducing a $5 beginner class.
Oh, great.
Which is going to literally the print is still not even dry yet on that one, but I think it starts this Saturday at noon. So,
that's great.
But
so keep an eye out for all that sort of stuff. More reasons to come to the shop. Like we said, it's not just a place to buy things, right?
That's it.
Yeah. And so, that's just about it. Do you have any sort of like closing statements that you want to make or anything? And I to me, the idea of this conversation was to sort of be a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. Right. Not to say that like we aren't going to be taking this worry away from you. Right. But hey, these are the things that we deal with.
Right.
And I think it's important to have perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my goal and our efforts are to continually reinvent the bike world, right, and for the consumer that's that's becoming part of the NBX family, and I think that there's a constant understanding of how we are relevant to you as a consumer. I think that's really important. We're all consumers, so we know how it feels when there's been problematic purchases, bad relationships, bad interaction. You know, I'm in the customer service business, but I'm actually more in the hospitality business. You know, we have, our goal is to be really your spot that will take care of all your problems, you know, bike related, and that's really what I want to be able to offer the consumer. But they need to come here first and meet us and give us a chance, and that's usually really what we're looking for is an opportunity to make sure that we're not just all talk.
And be part of your bike world, to be like a valuable part of
any level, right? I mean, it's I grew up, I raised 3 kids, and we were bike path family. You know what I mean? And so, and then I compete on the road and in the mountain and mountain bikes and all that. And so there's lots of different perspectives that I know people can use the bike for a lot of great things, you know?
Yeah, so, to me, that's like one of the best parts about being here, like in the summer, is seeing all the different type of people that are trying to get on bikes, you know, whether they be vacationing here and they're going to rent a bike that's essentially like a beach cruiser, right? Or someone who, you know, wants to buy their kid their first bike, right? And so it really is like all across the board, as much as like you know, if you listen to this podcast and you do the type of riding that I do, it can be sort of, you know, one track minded at a time, you know, but there's so much more.
There's so much
than
more.
Just the type of riding that you do. And there's so much more available here,
right?
You know, I think than just like any one type of riding. It really is like you can get a Strider bike, a kid's bike, you can get a pedal assist bike, you can get a fast road bike, a fast gravel bike, you know what I mean? Mountain bikes of all sizes.
It's an incredible common denominator.
Yeah, it really is.
The word bicycle,
right?
It really is. And my dad was a big golfer, and I used to always need to kind of explain to a person who was not from the bike world what the bikes represent. And my best analogy was he doesn't golf with just one club, right? And so he's got a lot of clubs in that bag, and the bike world has a lot of clubs. And it offers a different use for each one of those clubs, right? And so the bike has so many different uses, and we try to represent as best we can all those different disciplines, right? And so, it's a really fun and challenging space, you know. When you come into the store, I used to always joke where we're the Honda dealer and the Ferrari dealer all under one roof.
At the same time.
And so you walk in and you might see that Ferrari first, but I'll guarantee you I got a Honda somewhere in that mix for you. There's lots of different price points. There's lots of different applications. And so, we're here to guide to make sure you get the right one. So,
and not to mention like what the bike can teach you, right, in terms of like your own resilience or your own ability to push through something or and accomplish something, right? Because it is like, you know, a relatively simple machine, right, with like pulleys and chain, right? Like it is, to me, one of the best things about a bike is like where it can take you at a different perspective than any other type of travel, right? And so even if like just from a commuter perspective or someone that's just going to grab groceries, right? Like that is empowering.
Yeah, it really is.
To be able to pedal, you know, your way somewhere.
Right.
You know?
It's so beyond a toy.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's the part that still is challenging to the person who doesn't utilize it as a potentially like a performance piece of equipment and all that. It's it's a pretty amazing piece of equipment. Like even in the most basic form. And we really have an industry that is incredibly technical, again, even in the basic way. And so that there's a part of that has, you know, evolved so much. And if you haven't been involved in that process, it can be overwhelming. And our goal is to help you, you know, really kind of decipher through all that. So, you know, you're not looking at 20 different saddles. You know, you might only have 3 to choose from us, but at the same time, we've done our homework, you know.
And that's why we offer these.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So it's, let us help you. You know, that's what we're here for, you know, so,
That's great. Well, thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you. I love being on here, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, let's get you back. And so, like we said earlier, you can listen to the previous episode with Matt, but then we've had other members of NBX on the show. You can find them on the website, nbxbikes.com. You can find them on the It's Just a Hill YouTube page.
Yep.
And yeah, looking forward to doing more and diving in deeper to like the bike world with you and with everyone else here at the shop.
Yeah, thank you for the time.
Yeah.
And you know, as always, it's a great opportunity to kind of share this information with everybody.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah, cool. Thanks again, Matt.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
We are It's Just a Hill, a cycling club that promotes inclusion, judgment-free, with no gatekeepers. Focused on creating content from behind the handlebars to in the studio, It's Just a Hill is producing videos and podcasts to spread the message that cycling is for everyone. We are focused on reminding everyone that riding your bike can help you overcome any obstacle, because after all, it's just a hill.
Decaf left, regular right. Decaf left, regular right. It's very challenging work.